From the frozen palaces of Moscow to the candlelit halls of the Winter Palace, Russian history is soaked in both glory and blood. The rulers of this vast empire, known as Tsars, emperors and empresses, commanded millions, built cities, and shaped the destiny of a nation that spanned 2 continents. But behind the golden crowns and glittering balls lurked dark conspiracies, betrayal, and shocking deaths. Tonight, we uncover the most mysterious and horrifying ends of Russian rulers, those who ruled with power but met their fate in ways that shook the empire forever. Our story begins with Ivan IV, better known as Ivan the Terrible, the first Tsar of Russia, crowned in 1547. Ivan was both brilliant and brutal. His paranoia grew with his power, and soon he saw enemies everywhere, even within his own family. In a tragic fit of rage, Ivan struck his beloved son, Ivan Ivanovich, with a staff during an argument, killing him instantly. The Tsar was left in horror and grief, realizing he had murdered his heir with his own hands. After that moment, witnesses say Ivan's eyes lost their light. He died suddenly while playing chess in 1584, some say poisoned by his own advisors, others claiming his heart simply gave out from guilt and madness. Next came Tsar Peter the Great, the man who dragged Russia into the modern age. He built St. Petersburg, reformed the army, and opened the empire to Europe. But his end was far from noble. In 1725, Peter jumped into freezing waters to save sailors from drowning. Though he rescued them, he caught pneumonia and fever soon after. For days, he suffered in agony, unable to breathe, whispering his last words, "Leave all to," before dying mid-sentence. No one ever knew what he meant to say. His death left Russia without clear direction, and the power struggle began again. Then came Catherine the Great, the most powerful woman Russia had ever seen. She seized the throne after overthrowing her husband, Peter III. For 34 years, she ruled with intelligence and iron will, expanding the empire and bringing enlightenment. But when she died in 1796, rumors spread like wildfire. Her enemies whispered scandalous lies that she met her end in shameful ways, but in truth, she collapsed in her private chamber from a massive stroke. The empress who once commanded millions died alone on the cold marble floor, her legacy forever stained by gossip and jealousy. Her husband, Peter III, had suffered a far worse fate. In 1762, only months into his reign, he was overthrown by Catherine's supporters and imprisoned in Ropshah Palace. Days later, he was found dead. Officially, it was said he died of hemorrhoidal colic, but everyone knew the truth. He had been strangled by his guards under secret orders. The emperor who once wore the crown of Russia was buried in silence, his killers rewarded, and the empire moved on. Paul I, Catherine's son, suffered a death eerily similar. Suspicious, paranoid, and obsessed with discipline, he angered the nobility and even his own guards. One stormy night in March 1801, a group of officers burst into his bedroom. Paul begged for mercy, but they struck him down, wrapped a scarf around his neck, and strangled him to death, just like his father. When his body was found, his crown lay beside him, twisted and broken. The Romanov curse, it seemed, had begun. Alexander II, the Tsar liberator, freed millions of serfs and tried to modernize Russia. But freedom came with enemies. On March 13, 1881, as he rode through St. Petersburg, revolutionaries hurled bombs at his carriage. One exploded beneath his feet. His legs were shattered, his body torn apart, and blood filled the cobblestones. As his guards lifted him, he whispered to his son, "I am still alive," before dying moments later. The empire wept, but his death ignited the fire of revolution. Then came Nicholas II, the last Tsar of Russia. The Romanov dynasty's final chapter was written in blood. The year was 1918. After the Russian Revolution, Nicholas and his family were imprisoned by the Bolsheviks in Yekaterinburg. In the early hours of July 17th, they were awakened and told they were being moved for their safety. Instead, they were led into a small basement. The guards entered, read a false declaration, and opened fire. Nicholas, Alexandra, their 5 children, and loyal servants were massacred in cold blood. The bullets echoed through the night, ending 300 years of Romanov rule. When it was over, silence fell, a silence that marked the death not only of a family, but of an entire era. Yet the curse of Russia's rulers did not end there. Even the rulers who came after, leaders who rose from revolution, would meet dark fates. Lenin, the man who led the revolution that killed the Tsar, suffered strokes that left him paralyzed and speechless before dying in 1924. His body was preserved in Red Square, as if death itself could not claim him. Joseph Stalin, the iron dictator who ruled through fear and blood, died gasping on the floor of his dacha in 1953, surrounded by men too terrified to save him. Poisoned, some say, by those waiting for his throne. History, it seems, has a cruel sense of justice. From Ivan the Terrible's guilt to Nicholas II's slaughter, from Peter the Great's heroic sacrifice to Paul III's strangulation, Russian rulers met ends as dramatic and violent as their reigns. Each death a mirror to their life, filled with ambition, betrayal, and destiny. The blood of the Tsar still haunts Russia's history, whispered through the corridors of palaces and the frozen air of St. Petersburg. For every crown that glittered, there was a blade waiting in the dark. This is the tragic legacy of the Russian rulers, a story where power demanded everything and mercy was never returned. In the end, the mightiest empire on earth was undone not by its enemies, but by the shadows within its own throne.